from the crashing icebergs of Diamond Beach to the still waters of Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon in southeast Iceland, we continued the adventure of the day by chasing the final light inside an ice cave carved beneath the glacier. And little did we know, at the end of the day we were gonna hear some of Iceland's most iconic folk stories. It's the year 1311 in Iceland. A volcano erupts beneath a glacier. 12 farms disappear. Only 4 people survive. One of them, a farmer who escaped by jumping onto an iceberg with his infant son in his arms. The other 2 survivors, a young girl and her dog. We had just finished exploring the ice caves beneath Europe's largest glacier when our guide told us this story on the drive back to Vatnajökull Glacier Lagoon. If you're drawn to places where history still lives beneath the surface, stay with us until the end of this video. There's more hidden in this land of fire and ice than most travelers ever hear.
Back here in 1300s, the people living here, there were about 40 farms, and they were growing vegetables, fruits, corn. Now, the best way to find the stories from the people that used to live in these times is to find the church diaries. If you travel around Iceland, you will notice there is a church in every corner of Iceland.
Yeah.
And the priests that were working in these churches, they were kind of like documentarians. They would document everything that was happening. Hold on. It's a bit slippery outside, so you need to go up fast.
Action, baby.
Where was I? Yeah. So find the church diaries. That's where you find amazing stories of people that used to live in these areas. And the people who were living in these areas underneath the glaciers with the volcanoes inside, they had a very simple emergency plan. Run. And you want to run up. You want to run up the mountains. And one of my favorite diaries is from a priest called Jón Helgason. He was writing a diary in the 1300s. And the diary from 1311 to 1312 is my favorite diary that I can find in Iceland. For example, one of the stories is about a farmer called Sturla. According to the diary, 1311, between Christmas and New Year's, was a massive eruption in a volcano called Katla. And underneath the glacier, there were 12 farms. From the 12 farms, there were only 4 survivors. And one of the survivors was the farmer Sturla. He was outside working when all of a sudden he started smelling sulfur in the air. Now the visibility wasn't very much that day, so he couldn't see the volcano. And smelling sulfur close to a volcano, you don't really care about it. And most of you have probably smelled some sulfur already in Iceland. You turn on the hot water in Reykjavik, it smells like shit. That's sulfur. So, the farmer Sturla didn't care about the smell and kept on working. But as the glacier was melting and the volcano was building up pressure, before he knew it, the farmer was standing there in sulfur smell and earthquakes. Still not being able to see what was going on the glacier, he wasn't going to be the foolish farmer who ran up the mountain with nothing going on. So he kept on working. Finally, the water came. When the farmer saw the flood coming from the corner of the mountain, he realized what was going on. And the first thing Sturla does, he runs into his home grabs his son. His son was just an infant baby, about 2 or 3 months old. And once he had grabbed his son, he started running as fast as he could up the mountain. Now, seeing the water coming towards him, the farmer was way too late. And it wasn't long until the farmer was stuck on the side of the mountain, couldn't go anywhere higher, and was pretty much just thinking what to do now. Sturla decided to wait for one of the icebergs that were breaking off the glacier to get close enough and jump on it. And that's what he did. When he got the chance, he jumped on one of the icebergs, and that iceberg was of course floating straight to the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if this wasn't written by the priest Jón, I would never believe this, and I still have a tough time believing the story. But according to the church diary, Sturla and the baby were out on the iceberg for either 5 days or 2 weeks. This was probably 5 days on the ocean, 2 weeks all in all to get back to the people. But when the people saw the farmer and the baby alive, they were absolutely stunned. And they started wondering right away, how the hell is the baby alive? How did the farmer keep an infant baby alive on an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean? The farmer had an answer for them. He told the people, to keep my son alive, I cut off my right nipple and I breastfed my baby in my own blood. It was quite disgusting, but genius that he thought about it. The blood is filled with nutrients and it's warm. And of course, out of pure luck, they both survived it. And this flood was named Sturlungahlaup, which roughly translates to Sturla running with a young baby flood. But if you want to read this story on your own, I can write down the name for you. And you can actually read this on Google.
Yes, please. Here it is.
The other 2 survivors, they weren't found until a few months afterwards. I have heard 7 months, but I'm not sure if that's right. Well, let's say 7 months after the eruption between Christmas and New Year's. 4 men were riding their horses through an area like we are driving right now. All of a sudden, one of the horses went through the soil, made a hole. So all the men, they stopped, they took the horse that went through the hole out of the hole, and they were looking inside. They couldn't see anything inside the hole, but they heard a dog barking from underneath. What would we do if we were walking here and would hear a dog barking from underneath the ground? We'd start to dig. So they started digging up the hole to make it big enough to go inside. Eventually they made it down into the hole where they found the 11-year-old girl with her dog, still alive. The reason why she was still alive after all this time is because she was supposed to get some dried fish and butter for the family. So she goes outside with her dog, goes inside the storage unit, and while she was outside, the flood came. If you ever have seen a glacial flood, then you know that they kind of look like avalanches going through. They push the ground and the gravel and everything in front of it, then the water comes. So when the flood hit the storage unit, it buried it in all the gravel, turned it into an air pocket underneath the flood. And this girl was stuck in that air pocket with enough food to last her for a very, very long time. Icelanders used to keep meat in sour milk. Actually still do, some of us today. If you ever drank in spoiled milk, then you know marinating your meat in it is not going to be good. But the milk prevails the proteins in the meat, and you can keep it for up to 2 years to still eat it. Tastes horrible, but safe to eat. And of course the dried fish and the smoked meat that was inside the storage unit is all food that can last for a very long time. But Jón the priest did not have much to say about this girl, other than she was very happy to have a dog with her. She said he was a good companion inside the darkness. But this girl went absolutely insane staying underneath the ground like that. And I guess anybody would. But she survived it. And those were the only survivors from 1311 from the 12 farms. The farmer with only one nipple left, the left one, the little baby vampire, the crazy girl, and the dog. And that area had farms being built ever since 873. And then Katla, the volcano, is supposed to erupt every 40 to 80 years. So every 40 to 80 years, all the farms in that area got washed away. And being Icelandic and stupid, we went ahead and built another farm. Started all over again. And then after 40 to 80 years, everything washed away. It wasn't until my great-great-grandparents moving to that area, we decided to build a farm on top of the mountain. Genius. And then we were living there in the last eruption from Katla in 1918. The farm is no longer there. We don't live there anymore.